mention about marriage.
Okay.
So Islamically, the purpose of the Islamic marriage, it is something legal. It doesn't matter whether you have a secular marriage contract or not. It's legal according to the laws that Allah has given Muslims. So anything that Allah has given us, regardless of whether it falls under the category of secular legalization, whether you're in a Muslim or a non-Muslim country, doesn't matter. It's legal from an Islamic paradigm. Now, you have Muslims in Muslims and non-Muslim countries who get married under secular law also, but it's never trumped above Islamic law.
So let me ask you a question. And you can answer this too, can Muslims marry non-Muslim, and can Jews marry non-Jews? And the reason I brought that up, and I think you could equate to this, in the black community in America, right, we always get into these conversations about marrying in your race, right? And anytime somebody chooses to marry outside of their race, sometimes they get chastised or thrown under the bus for it, right?
Yeah,
but
they call it cultural apostasy.
Yeah, but in so many different other cultures and religions throughout the world, it's just commonality that you just marry in your race. One, because to procreate and keep your race and everything and your culture going just makes sense, right? From survival nature point of view. But we usually are attracted to things that are like us, right? And I just want y'all to touch on that. So can you marry outside of your religion in Muslim or Judaism, or how does that work?
In terms of from the Islamic paradigm, only Muslim men can marry outside of the religion of Al-Islam. And Muslim men are only allowed to marry Jewish women or Christian women. So that's the paradigm. So the reason how and why is because Islamically, the helm of domestic leadership is always given to the man. Because Allah says in the Quran, men are responsible for women. And in terms, just from a spiritual paradigm, the man is always going to be the head of the family. And women just by nature, a lot of people are not going to like this, women by nature gravitate towards whatever time the husband is on. So this is why Muslim women are banned from marrying non-Muslim men. In terms of protecting her religious identity so that she will not sway to another religion. And this is actually also an uncomfortable conversation that a lot of Muslims don't like to have, is that the reason how and why Muslim men are allowed to marry Jewish or Christian women is because it's easier to influence them to become Muslim, even though they're not obligated to become Muslim. A Jewish woman is not obligated to become a Muslim. A Christian woman is not obligated to become a Muslim. But very often, more often than people think, very often if a Muslim man marries a non-Muslim woman, she very often ends up becoming Muslim herself, right? So that's the reason how and why that's set in place. Because just based on like human nature, right? In terms of sexuality, right? Just like I tell people all the time, women are the gatekeepers of sex, men are the gatekeepers of relationships. So when you have those intimate relationships between man and woman, the man becomes very influential over the woman because of the nature of the intimate relationship. So if a Muslim woman were to be with a non-Muslim man, it's gonna have a deep effect on her conflict of interest in terms of her beliefs. Now, conversely, if a Muslim man is with a non-Muslim woman, that's gonna have the same effect. So this is why Islamically those barriers are set in place. Now, in terms of the reason how and why Muslim men are allowed to marry Jewish and Christian women in general, is because they have books of revelation that they lay claim to from different prophetic individuals that Allah has informed us about that we also believe in. Like, for example, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Joshua, David, Solomon, Jesus, what have you, right? So because they lay claim to these religious texts that predate the revelation of the Quran, they're given a category and a status known as Ahlul Kitab, people of the book, meaning people who adhere to what is survived or remnants of former revelation of former books. So that's why Allah has given them the status as people of the book, because of the former revelations that were sent that Jews and Christians observe. That's the reason why.